Well, that's a big question, Bonnie. And
I like big questions.
yeah, me too. Wait a minute, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
In my early years, before I was 7 or 6,
Hmm.
it was very natural for me to see spirits moving around or, energies. But by the time I was 18, nobody had been talking about it, so I actually thought I was crazy.
Hmm.
And so I withdrew. So during that time, and then in my 20s, my early to up to my, I'd say till I was about 23, it was a very shaky time because being sensitive and having these experiences and thinking, oh, this is true, but yet nobody's talking about it. What's wrong with me? That's where I focused. I
Hmm.
went to the negative, dark side of things. And then I was with someone at the time, and I had this massive dream.
Hmm.
And I woke up and I said, someone's going to put a wet blanket on you because there's going to be a fire in your building. So just be careful and, take care and let me know that everything's okay. And he blew it off. And then he came home the next day and he said, but never acknowledging what I had said. And he said, oh, yeah, there was a fire on the building. And the firemen came and took me up to the roof and they put this blanket on me and my mouth dropped open. And there was validation. I think I was 22 or
Hmm.
something. Yeah, about 22. There was validation for, oh, okay. But he never acknowledged, hey, you had a dream about that. So we never talked about it. So
Hmm.
once he left and then years progressed, maybe it's 3 or 4 years later, the constancy of seeing something, hearing something, recognizing something was me learning the language of intuition and how to cope with being a clairvoyant and responding in a way that was appropriate. Now, I'll give you a very funny example. When Dean and I have been together for 24 years, we've been married for 20, and I hope that's right. We check with him.
It's
I
fine.
think that's
I
right.
won't tell him.
Okay. When we were first together as really great friends, I remember I got into the shower at around 11 o'clock one day, and he came into the bathroom and he said, what are you doing? You getting ready? And I go, yeah, we're going out to lunch with your mom. And he said, no, we're not. And I said, yeah, she called and she's going to take us to lunch, right? And he said, no. And we had an argument. We had an argument. So I wound up crying in the bathroom thinking, oh, I'm crazy again. I'm just crazy all the time. I don't know what's real. And Dean walked into the bathroom and he gave me a big hug and he said, Elaine, my mother just called and she invited us out to lunch. It's okay. So I would experience things on the planes, the ether planes, before they would happen.
Hmm.
I would grieve for apparently no reason. And then a month later, 2 months later, one of my favorite celebrities would pass away or a relative would pass away. So my timing would seem out of step. But once I understood what was happening, I started to trust that my intuition was telling me something and I would listen.
Hmm.
And I do that about 90% of the time. The other 10% is filled with, I'm a mom, I have a dog, I have a mom who needs, a lot of attention, I have a husband, I have two businesses, so life gets to me. And sometimes I don't slow down. But I have voices that I hear, and my dad being one of them. And I hear what people would call angels, but not the religious kind.
Hmm.
I would call them angelic beings and energies with very specific messages. And then I listen. So, for instance, I'll be walking somewhere and I'll hear very loudly in my head, slow down. And so then I slow down. I used to question why, and
Hmm.
that was my resistance to the process. And then I would find out why. I'd get into a car accident, I'd trip, I'd drop papers in a wet puddle, and I'd be like, oh. So before I like if the phone is ringing in the kitchen and I'm doing something at my computer, before I even answer the phone, I just stop and I listen. And my gut will tell me, pick up the phone. And then I will look at the phone and I don't recognize the number, but I hear
Mm.
pick up the phone. So I pick up the phone. And it's a phone call that I need to take. So for the most part, I have to say I'm pretty fortunate that I trust what happens
Mhm.
and I listen to it. And then the other part is that just because, people make excuses, they say, well, I'm human, and that's their, excuse for not achieving something. I don't know. Oh, well,
Mhm.
I'm only human. Well, we're all human.
Yeah.
And I think if we honor that we're scared sometimes or that our intuition is turned off because the emotions and the fear are turned way up.
Mhm.
And it's not an excuse for being, it's part of our process. And to honor and accept that and to say, I didn't have a clue. And for me, it's like being Deanna Troi in one of the Star Trek episodes where she has an accident or something and she can't see. And someone
Mhm.
asked me recently, what episode of Star Trek Next Generation do you love the most? And I say that one because I know what it's like to be blind. I was in a car accident once and psychically blind, I mean. And I was
Mhm.
in a car accident once and I was in trauma and I went to physical therapy. My brother-in-law was a physical therapist. And he said, how are you? And I said, I can't see anything. He goes, you mean your eyes? And I go, no, my eyes are fine. I just can't see. Everything was black.
Mhm.
So then I knew what it felt like to be Deanna Troi in that episode. And I thought, that's scary.
Mhm.
That's what makes me afraid is not being able to see instead of seeing too much. Now, sometimes I'll be seeing stuff that I don't want to see, and I
Mhm.
will tell the universe, turn it off because I don't need to see that, or I don't
Mhm.
need to hear that. I don't need to be part of that stream of consciousness that's moving through. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like we're all stones of water.
Mhm.
And then we throw a stone, each person is a stone, and we all jump into the pool called consciousness, and everybody's making waves. And we all feel everybody's waves. But do we need to respond or react to every single wave? No, we don't. We go crazy.
Mhm.
So we turn down the volume. It's like having 1,000 TVs on at the same time. It's just like, okay, click, shut it off, shut it off, shut it off, shut it
Yeah.
off.